Hi there, it's me again. I'm here to discuss the symptom progression that led me to apply for disability benefits due to my Parkinson's disease. This is definitely a difficult subject to discuss, as the acceptance of any symptom progression means that I've lost grounds to this disease despite all of my efforts to fight back. I've done everything I think I can do to counter it. Exercise, supplement, medication increases, life changes. And yet, despite all of that, I still must give away ground to the symptoms. I'm a bit of a Middle Earth fan, so if you've ever read the Silmarillion, you'll know what I'm talking about when I say that sometimes dealing with Parkinson's disease is like fighting the slow defeat. I'm just used to pushing back at any difficult situation with all of my might to get my way, but sometimes, in this case, it just doesn't work. By saying that, I don't mean to paint a dark, negative picture about my life, or that in some way getting Parkinson's disease can destroy you. That's not the point of this channel. The main idea behind my channel is to pass on things that have helped me cope with the Parkinson's and to balance life with the symptoms. And so I'll get into what happened that led me to finally apply for disability benefits. I will cover number one. The possibility of disability benefits were discussed with me very early into my diagnosis. 2. The main situation that caused me to apply. And 3. The application process and the result. When I got into planning this video, I realized a lot of this topic relates to my diagnosis, and also what happened over the following years. So if you haven't seen my video about my diagnosis story, I've included it in the description below. On another note, it's taken a long time to put this video together, nearly 6 months, because I just did not know how to deal with this topic appropriately. It can seem so dark and draining. I just didn't want to present it that way. I hope you can appreciate the theme that I've chosen. As always, please don't use this video as a diagnostic tool. Seek medical professional attention. I'm not one of those. Also, I'm not encouraging anyone to apply for disability benefits because everyone's situation is different. Okay, the first topic is a bit of a mouthful. The possibility of disability benefits were discussed with me very early into my diagnosis. I think people generally like to be special in a way that identifies them from the general crowd, in a positive way, such as being recognized for an achievement, a milestone accomplishment, or an award of some kind that puts them on center stage. On the other hand, I don't think that people are like to be told that they are special because they have a unique form of a commonly known disease that is very difficult to diagnose and also very advanced. In my case, I am the latter and not the former. When I saw my first neurologist, who is also a movement disorder specialist, in May of 2017, he diagnosed me as having a form of Parkinsonism, but needed to see me further to make sure he was right. I went for my first follow-up appointment 6 months later, which was used to confirm his diagnosis, but there were also a couple of things about me that did not sit right with him. Like every time he would test me for something, he would go, that threw us off a little bit, but we're not complaining. He then asked my permission to take my file to the department's monthly meeting so it could be openly discussed with the entire staff, which was also unsettling. And then I saw a social worker that day encouraging me to pursue disability benefits immediately and change my job as quickly as possible. That was troubling and caused me to have a sinking feeling. Then in 2018, I went for another follow-up appointment and then failed the standard memory test. As a result of that, I was sent to another neurologist who was a dementia specialist who diagnosed me with mild cognitive impairment a month or so later and confirmed my diagnosis of Parkinson's. He also said, "No, you don't have dementia. You're just depressed a little bit. Antidepressants will clear up your depression and also repair your memory." Then he also strongly recommended that I prepare to go on disability. Wow! I sure felt special. Special because my form of Parkinson's was unique and required a lot of input to diagnose and confirm, and because it presented mainly as movement related. Because of that, it could produce challenges in the future that I apparently needed to plan for immediately. Talk about being thrown under the bus by some kind of special. Of course, I immediately refused the disability application and went on with my life as normal. Hey, I didn't think there was anything wrong with me at all. Complete denial. Okay, part 2. The situation that caused me to apply. When COVID hit, it had been 3 years since my initial diagnosis, and the weight of my current job was bearing down heavily upon me as it became increasingly difficult to manage. As an overhead door technician and a manager, I knew that working daily off ladders, combined with heavy lifting, was no longer a long-term career option. Unfortunately, I needed a change. COVID immediately affected my workplace, and layoffs needed to happen. I became one of them. My wife and I sold our home, moved somewhere more affordable, and I logically picked a full-time sales job in our city that I felt I could do full-time. Considering the economy and the unemployment, it was amazing I got hired at all. It worked fine for the first 9 months, but then the commuting began to wear me down to the point that bedtime was a few hours after I arrived home each day, and because of that, my exercise routine started to be greatly shortened. That was a disaster for my Parkinson's, and then because of my immediate muscle loss, I began to lose my balance too often, and other movement-related symptoms accelerated. As a result, I had to reduce my work schedule to 3 days a week to allow for more time for exercise, but that didn't last long. I became exhausted, and driving became even more difficult. That was the moment I knew that the slow defeat was taking its toll. Since our move, I had seen my new neurologist and my new medical team. I had explained my work history, and they gave me the same advice I had before. But that time, I was excited by our new move and our new opportunity, and I had felt that a less physical job would allow me to continue as normal. So naturally, I had refused the advice to consider disability. But with the 3 days per week schedule becoming even more of a burden, I caved in and made an appointment with a social worker at her soonest available time slot to get an application going. This became my new low point since my diagnosis. I had to admit that the doctors were right. I was special. Okay, part 3. The application process and the result. Days that I have felt special in my life, from my earliest recollections to recent. The first birthday party I could recall. My first Christmas. Hey, getting that present you've waited for all year. Winning top male student in my graduating class. Definitely getting married. Definitely having children. Filling out my disability application? I don't think that's a high point yet. But there I was, sitting in the social worker's office, with my wife supporting me, staring at the application like it was some sort of legal document, and having to fill it out on my own, with the social worker guiding me through each question. It took over an hour and a half. It didn't feel like a special moment. Since this was actually really the easiest and shortest part of the whole process, I remember thinking about life in general while filling out the application, and all the things I had done and been through, and how this would usher in a bit of a new time, the early golden years. But what I really want to bring up was the advice that the doctors and the social workers had given me. Start planning now to go on disability. That was the most difficult thing to grasp during my diagnosis. How do you plan for something that seems so foreign and so unlikely at 44 years of age? I was planning to work full time for nearly another 20 years. It was way too early to retire. My wife and I were fortunate, though. We had lots of support and people to talk to and family members to get guidance from. But in the end, we had to make the decisions. Those were the choices that my wife and I had to make while dealing with an overwhelming diagnosis. I'm sure others out there feel the same. To me, it's like a bad movie that is so bad you can't stop watching it. You need to see the end. We had all of the advice to change our lives because of my illness, but no idea how to do it. We had to make it up as we went along, and we sifted through many different options. That was tough to accept, and even more difficult to live, having to make those choices in your 40s. That's what's made this topic so difficult to talk about. It's such an unlikely thing to have happen at so young an age, but yet it happened, and here we are. I really have no advice on how to live it, except that somehow I had to come to terms with it, and that only happened when I knew I couldn't win. That's what I mean when I say the slow defeat. Well, within 2.5 weeks of mailing in my application, I received a phone call that I was accepted with a few conditions that I immediately agreed to. The doctors were right. I, I am unique. Okay, the wrap up. If you've made it this far, then I thank you for listening to my story. I hope you've gained something from it, as I really try to put a positive spin on something I've found extremely difficult to talk about. It's not a simple thing to give in to symptom progression from time to time and accept that I have Parkinson's. But on the bright side, with more time to exercise and manage my illness, I've been able to join the gym, regain some muscle mass, and backtrack some of those disturbing movement-related symptoms. As I said earlier, I'm not encouraging anyone to apply for disability, nor am I indicating that just because I have Parkinson's it was easy to qualify. It was something that was advised to me at the beginning of my journey. Feel free to like and subscribe, and if you've had some interesting Parkinson's moments where you felt special, please share them with me. I'd be happy to hear them. Thank you, and see you next time.